Good afternoon, John. John Donovan,
Hi, Marty.
my friend and mentor down in San Diego, California. Marty Keller here in Sacramento, California.
Mm.
We're the Intentional Living Boys, and we're here to discuss this idea and this process and this practice that my friend here, John, has been developing over the past quarter century of what we call intentional living. And we thought we would have a conversation today for those of you who might be here for the very first time. Maybe you heard about this from some friends or other ways that you might have come across the information. And you might be wondering, what is this intentional living practice and who is it really for? So I thought we might start with that question, John. For whom would you recommend, or to whom would you recommend checking out intentional living? And what kind of
Uh,
person find it most useful?
Anybody struggling with um, compulsive or obsessive patterns of behavior, feelings of inadequacy, or I used to call it for myself social anxiety, or find themselves stuck in a pattern of behavior that they recognize they don't want, and whether that pattern behavior is like an extreme pattern like addiction or codependency, or whether it's a pattern of behavior that's interrupting whatever relationship you might be in. You find yourself doing the same thing over and over and over, and not understanding why, knowing that you don't want to be in that pattern or express the way you express, and find that no matter what you do, that pattern repeats. Anybody in that category. I started out because of an addiction, alcoholism, um, and that's what got me interested in some form of new information. At the time, I called it a recovery program, um, and yeah, anybody in that category, or self improvements, whatever you, mostly patterns of behavior that you don't want.
Yeah, thanks. As you were sharing that, I was thinking back to when I first found recovery. Before I found you, I found adult children of alcoholics
Mm-hmm.
in 1989. And the reason I found it was I was working with this therapist, and I was complaining about I had found some guy that I was dating, and I thought he was really hot and it was really nice for a few weeks, and all of a sudden he didn't answer the calls, and um, it got I was frustrated and unhappy, and uh, this had happened before. And so the therapist goes, this seems to be a recurring issue for you. You might consider going to adult children of alcoholics meetings.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea what he was talking about. I had no idea what ACA was. I knew AA, I knew Alcoholics Anonymous, but um, I, I didn't have any familiarity with the underlying insight that he had, and that seems to be completely coherent with what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
Had a
Yeah.
pattern of behavior or experience, and my behavior wasn't even whatever I was doing to contribute to this uh, these uh, kinds of rejections that seem to happen regularly. I had no idea. I wasn't aware of it. I
Mm-hmm.
just thought it was the other person's fault. Thought there
Can,
was
can, can we pause for a moment? I
Yeah,
have a
absolutely.
call.
So I was grateful that my therapist Jesse recognized that those kinds of patterns of behavior, even though I was unaware of what was actually going on, what was my role, stem from childhood trauma, and uh, and that was the beginning of my journey toward recovery. So it sounds like I was a candidate for intentional living even before intentional living was developed. Actually,
Yeah.
I think you were starting it out right around that time.
Yeah. Um, I started going into recovery in 1988. And first for AA for a while, then I found adult children of alcoholics, and that became my home group because I felt comfortable there. I felt like that group addressed the issues I found. When I first went in, they read a list of character defects. They call that the laundry list. For example, afraid of criticism, resentful of authority figures, tend to love those I could pity, um, sought out, other people with esteem issues. It just fit. And the results, like I said, who's eligible, the results tell you what the subconscious memory is holding on to in the form of dysfunction or trauma. And those words are clinical words or buzzwords for unresolved issues from your childhood. And and it doesn't have to be major. It doesn't have to be, beatings. It could be left in a room like on a consistent basis. Something that is stuck in the subconscious. And according to ACA, if you had this childhood dysfunction somehow, some way, whatever degree, you lined up with these 14 traits, the laundry list they call it. And I lined up with most of them actually. It gave me an idea of why I found myself like addicted to excitement, afraid of criticism, and it gave me something to address rather than trying to figure it out rationally, because it's not rational. There's no good reason other than I'm messed up or you're messed up, blame or judgment, which is what I found myself stuck in. It was either my fault or their fault. So yeah, it's knowing where you're at, having something that gives you an idea of where you're at is specific to like a trauma. Another one of the examples I use is I found out when I was 68 years old that I had dyslexia, and all the symptoms of dyslexia I matched. And before I knew I had dyslexia, I would think, try to figure out why I would be this exact way. Other people weren't that way. I'm that way. There's something wrong with me. Or again, into blame and judgment. And once I have, I don't want to say diagnoses, but right now that word works, or a reason for this particular behavior, it gave me agency, or it gave me a way to, well, for me, it just ease up on myself, quit being so damn critical of myself, because whatever happened here, the effects of it for everybody, not just me, are these signs and symptoms. And for me, it was codependency, addiction, and some type of avoidant behavior that I would find myself in. And what I was avoiding was the pain of childhood that I had relegated to my subconscious. I didn't know how to say it. There's no words for it. And yet there was this gnawing, something's wrong, something isn't right. And this gave me clarity and direction, something to focus on. And I developed this, what we call intentional living, this body of work, to specifically address my behaviors. I heard in the 12-step groups, ACA, that when you own a character defect, it becomes your character asset, which made no sense to me. When I first heard it, it made no sense. And what I found that in this accountability tree process, which is a specific process of owning where you're at, whatever the character defect might be, arrogant, entitled, mean, and simply owning it with no blame or judgment. Just like, don't criticize myself for being there, understanding that I'm here because of something that happened to motivate where I found myself. And then in the ownership of it, blame-free, judgment-free, I felt something happening internally. And that something, what I've come to recognize, is healing, is a validation of whatever pain or misperception I had of myself being validated and relieved, which it's like whatever happened to me as a child is always going to have had happen to me. How I perceive it or how I see it is what changes. My perception of it changes to, oh, that was not okay. It hurt. And I could release that energy that I had to hold on to stay acceptable, to stay appropriate, to stay in the family unit. I had to like cover this up. Now I'm releasing it by owning the end result of this trauma. This trauma will, like I said in the ACA 14 steps, character defects, codependency, addiction, those just don't happen all by themselves. It's like a perfectly healthy person goes, I'm going to be a gutter snipe junkie. It just that's not in alignment. If something happened in my childhood that was tragic enough and not in my awareness, in my subconscious, it produced gutter snipe junkie or I call myself alcoholic lush. Um, so it made sense. And it gave me, if this is where I'm at based on where I came from, and I acknowledge the pain from where I came from, which relieves it, I'm now lucid to decide for myself, be proactive in the behavior I want to accumulate now, I want to be in now. So for an example, if I say I'm mean, take the breath. This is a accountability tree process. Owning it, blame-free, judgment-free. Of course, based on where I came from, meanness worked to keep people away. But I didn't know that. I wanted to be close to people. And yet this thing said, no, 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 we keep a distance. And that distance created separation in the relationships, which meant I got into, out of, into, out of, into, out of. And when I owned that where I was, codependent, mean, and then I replaced it. Let me say this first. When I owned that, I felt, and I want to say a validation of sorts of what happened, not that it didn't happen, but it did happen. And I can now release the energy that I was holding on to and say, I intend to be kind. I intend to be gracious. And things opened up for me in a way that couldn't open up for me stuck in the pattern trying to fix myself. So it's simply put, it's moving from reactive or pattern of behavior I don't want to lucid, owning the pattern, blame-free, judgment-free, feeling this relief, validation of a subconscious thing that I don't have words for in it. There's the relief feeling. And then I say, I intend to be kind. I intend to build a capacity for long-term loving, caring relationships. And I grow. I grow from that point. I mature. One of the things I realized when I was 45 years old, that I was 45, 250 pounds in this massive body with the emotional maturity of a 5-year-old, which made me dangerous to be around. That's dangerous to be around somebody that powerful physically, and yet with the emotional maturity, it's my ball. I'm taking it home. Screw you. It's like, how do you interact on a mature level? Well, my truth was I couldn't, I didn't know how. Now I'm learning how. I'm learning things that are open to me now, simply based on owning where I came from and the truth about where I found myself. So.
Thanks. Thanks for that. So let's drill down a little bit on the practice itself.
Okay.
We can
All
talk
right.
more about the theory later if you want.
Okay.
But if I'm so first of all, let's just note that this work is almost always done in a group setting, patterned after AA,
Mm-hmm.
Alcoholics Anonymous, and then Adult Children of Alcoholics, and then all the other 12-step spin-offs of AA. The
Mm-hmm.
work's done in group settings. So the question then comes, again, newcomer, what can I expect when I go to my first meeting?
To see something different than you've ever seen before is to try to understand what's going on. Why are these people talking about what they're talking about? Why is John saying what he's saying? Um, and having a desire for something different. Like my desire for something different when I went to AA was the absence of ingesting alcohol. I wanted to be able to. I didn't want to quit. I just wanted to do it right. And then I found, that for me it'd be a good idea not to do it at all. But the how of that, and it's in this. It's new information. People who come, I don't know about people. Listen, when I first went to ACA, I had little understanding of what they were doing. I felt like I belonged. I couldn't explain it, but I felt like there's something here I want. So I kept coming back. Um, when new people come, I tell them they can blank their screens, put themselves on mute, and observe. Observe what we do here, and see if that anything we do might be of value to you. And if it is of value to you, come back. Come back and entertain new information or a different way to see yourself. I want to say it was a different way to see myself in comparison to everybody else. I used to compare my insides with everybody else's outsides, and going to mine. I remember the first time it gave me the opportunity to just say where I'm at instead of trying to be what I saw in everybody else. Um, I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question, Marty.
Well, it starts to. I'm so first of all, what you implied, just again, technically, we do have meetings that anybody who's here for the first time can check out, and they are on Zoom. That's what John was referring to.
Right.
You can darken your screen or turn off your cameras, whatever. We have done these meetings, and this was before COVID. We did them all in person, so this was a technology switch that occurred because of COVID. And
Yeah.
information about attending any of these meetings will be available at the end of the podcast. You can check it out, and the Zoom addresses will be available and the times and so forth. Um, One thing that's different from AA or ACA or other 12-step meetings is that in our intentional living meetings, we have a facilitator, or we have a role that we call facilitator.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
The um, 12-step groups have a set of rules and regulations: no crosstalk, listen, no judgments, opinions, um, and everybody gets to share. Everybody just gets to say what's on their mind, say what's in their heart, and nobody says anything to anybody. I was in that for a good 10, 12 years, and I started looking for a second level of recovery. The 12 steps, the way they're designed right now, are magnificent. They've saved millions of lives, and I wanted more. So in this is what I call second level recovery out of the 12 step traditions where you go no crosstalk, no anything. But this is a dialogue with somebody who's been through it. I call it peer facilitated group. So I've been through it, you've been through it, the other facilitators have been through it, and then we share our experience and field questions about the material. What is it? What are we talking about here? How do I explain the material? Take people through a process, because I could talk to you all day long for a year, And it would mean more to you or anybody else if they had the experience of what's going on inside their body. So the um, peer facilitator is a guide to take you through an unfamiliar practice so that you can feel, embody whatever it is we're having to offer, which is relief from patterns. How'd I do there, Marty? I'm trying to
Well,
stay on topic.
I'm sold. Uh,
Oh, good,
well,
good.
and so from my experience as a person who facilitates these meetings as well, is the part of the value of this role is to help people stay focused on those things which we would, left to our own devices, choose not to focus on. And particularly, I'm talking about feeling. So you said
Right,
feeling, and the key to the accountability practice, friends, is in the body.
in the
And
body.
we, not only in just sort of in our culture generally, we are not we're not trained to be embodied in our experience. We're trained to actually ignore our bodies. As one of our colleagues says, we kind of believe our body is this thing to carry our heads around.
Mm-hmm.
And so we tend, it's a modern culture, it's a rational culture, so we tend to glorify thought over feeling. And we
Mm-hmm.
actually will explore in our meetings how it is that our minds can repress feeling. And
Right.
so what the practice offers is the notion or the insight that moving from being stuck in the energy that creates these patterns of behavior that you were referring to at the beginning it cannot be done by thinking about it. Let's just
No,
say it that way. It's it's um it's an emotional it's an emotional work. And I'll just say my thought, and then I'd like you to elaborate if you're willing. Is the reason it's an emotional work is because all of the trauma occurred in our pre-verbal, pre-rational moments of our lives,
right.
sometime in the first 5 years of our lives. Well, only the rare child has the ability to have developed any rational, self-reflective capabilities in those first 5 years. Most of us, that happens after we're 5, 6, 7, in that realm. And
Yep.
so we're living strictly in an emotional field. And so whatever happened to us happened as an emotional experience, and that's why it's not available to thought. So I'll just stop there and throw the ball to you to elaborate on. So the practice itself, how does it work, and how does feeling become the key to unlock healing?
Okay. The experiences in that age range from 0 to 7, 6, 7. The experiences are all frequency, feeling. That's what a feeling is. Now, when I say feeling, when I used to hear that word, uh, I I thought it was deep thought or compassionate thought. No, no. Feeling is a physical sensation in my body. Could be in my jaw, but in my body somewhere. When I was, whatever happened to me, and I'll use this as an example, left in a room and I saw my parent or guardian who I was attached to leave, and I was left alone. I didn't have the emotional maturity to go, oh, they'll be back in 5 minutes. I got to go to the bathroom. So I went into the feeling of abandonment. We call it abandonment, but to the child's body, it was a death threat because attached to caregiver is life. So that distancing from the caregiver, whether it was meant or not, or someone leaving the room or waking up late at night, nobody around, is um, a, a, a threat to livelihood. So what all infants know to do is to express that, and the way we express it is through crying, screaming, crying to get attention. And if we could talk, like at a year old in the crib, I'm scared, I don't know where you're at, can you please come here and reassure me that I'm okay? But we didn't have that capability. So it stuck in our body as a trauma, and our experiences are held in the form of emotions, feeling tones. Could be a sight thing that alerts us to danger, like one of the innate ones is snake, or grasping. For a young child, grasping is automatic. They know how to they'll grasp if they feel like they're going to fall. And crying is another one. Those are all ways to find relief. And if we didn't get the relief, then those got stuck in our body with no expression. When I grow up with this trauma stuck in my body with no expression, now that I do know how to talk and relate, the way I see it in me is that it came out sideways. And the sideways was alcoholic, um, codependency, I need you, or counterdependency. I don't need you, I don't need you, I don't need you. One on the either end of the spectrum of interdependency, or some kind of attachment disorder where your proximity, even though I'm an adult, I know better, when you go out in a huff, I'm feeling this trauma that happened to me 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. This trauma in my subconscious doesn't tell time. And it's got no way to express except what I call sideways in violent behavior, accusations, attack, defense, all the ways I used to get into arguments with people. You just accused me of, you said this, or you left me, which causes the inability to maintain and sustain relationships, which causes the only relief I could find was through alcohol. Alcohol works for me. Everybody chooses a different, based on their temperament and wounding. Some people choose amphetamines. Amphetamine didn't work for me. Alcohol will work for me to get me out of that, to calm, to get me feeling safe, because I distance myself from my feeling body. I felt the effects of alcohol, which felt good. I'm okay. But that was a synthetic okay. It wasn't really happening inside me, and gave me a, a temporary relief. And then when the alcohol left the body, the old trauma was still there. So I don't
So,
know.
so walk us through then with that introduction to the value and the importance of emotion in the work. Walk us through how you help somebody with this. I know in your meetings you almost always start out with a couple of questions that help, particularly the newcomer, get oriented to thinking about or getting into what might be possible for him or her. Your question of what is it what do you want that you don't, what is it, what is it you want?
Yeah, what do you want that you don't have?
Right.
And then I talk about what I found in me, and all the what I know now, trauma, that's keeping me from simply moving to peace of mind or self-confidence or self-assurance that I'm okay. I needed other assurance that I'm okay. Um, um, to broach this subject with a newcomer that has no idea other than I don't like where I'm at, or some people come in and say, I want to fix my partner. I want to fix them. They need uh, uh, to give them the information that wherever they find themselves is a direct result of their choices they made throughout could be a short span of time or a long span of time, to end them up where they found themselves. So what do you want that you don't have? And then I go through the obstacles, and the obstacles speak to what's internal with me, my experiences. They're mine, they're uniquely mine. I created beliefs, perceptions, and patterns of behavior that are similar to other people, but my particular beliefs, perceptions, and patterns are uniquely mine because nobody else has had my experience, which sometimes that's new in itself. It's like not everybody sees the world like you do. Number one, they can't because they don't have your experience. And then talk about the mechanism inside of us, our survival mechanism that's working on this subconscious information about what if you're left all the time and neglected, what's the logical conclusion is there's something wrong with me. There's something wrong with me. Can be
If
something wrong with,
for a little child.
yes, for a little child. So they get in the feeling tone belief in the subconscious, something wrong with me. So their behavior reflects that in real life. An example I use is before my recovery and well into my recovery, somebody would pay me a compliment and I would sidestep the compliment. Why would I know I just did a good job on whatever it was. I knew that was like maybe even creative. And yet somebody complimented me. I would go, oh, you're talking about somebody else. I would sidestep it. Well, what I found is in this trauma, the belief, overall belief, and it's still subconscious. I didn't wake up and go, oh, I have a belief I'm not worthy. Never happened except when I went through the practice. That this stuck trauma had the belief that I wasn't worthy, and it reflected in not being able to accept the compliment.